All right. Let's see here. Down a little bit. Hold. She may or may not. Before I go live on the actual Reddit one. About finding balance in life, isn't it? Finding balance. All right. So that's there. And let's go ahead and go live on this one as well. All right. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another edition of Dad Advice, Sunday edition. I'm going to go ahead and put in a couple things here in the comments over on Reddit. People can use that. Get that going. And then we can get started with the conversation. And I think I have questions here from yesterday, which I'll start with, and then take it from there. So, yeah. It's cool how easy this is, to be honest. And nobody's actually watching me just yet. Sometimes get confused when they come back and see it. All right. Very nice. Good to be back. Happy Sunday. Hope you had a wonderful weekend and ready for an even better week ahead. I hope that all of you have that. And it's good to be back with you doing this yet again. As you'll see, the phone number's there. If you want to call and chat, I always welcome that. That's a fun thing to do. And also fun to let people kind of hear the interactions because a little more of the question gets asked, and then we can make the advice a little bit more specific as well as always try to extract it. So, as you all know, I like to start out with a constant reminder of the following three ideas. The first one being that I want myself, I want you to take a moment today to see yourself as a whole person. And what that means is, if you've never bumped into me before, that I want you to see yourself not for the one or two negative things that you see within, but for the hundreds of good things that there are, right? So sometimes we might have a tendency to put our thought towards those one or two negatives, but that's not true, right? The truth is that we're much bigger than that. We're a whole person with a couple small flaws. But look at all the beauty that we have. Look at how amazing we are. And I want us to focus on the amazing part, not on the one or two negatives, because that's not the truth of who we are. That's not the whole of who we are. So first thing is, let's both remember to see ourselves as whole people, because then we can approach the world differently. We're going to approach the world from a place of confidence. We're going to approach the world with a different perspective than one perhaps of condemning ourselves and fearing the world and stuff like that. So that's number one. And then once you can kind of see yourself as a whole person, I want you to view yourself as a beautiful person. That's what you are. That's what I am. That's what we all are. And I want us to see ourselves for our whole beauty that we bring into the world. And that hopefully gives us the courage to do anything in the world that we want, because the only thing that holds us back is our mind. And so just a reminder that we can do anything we want if it's truly something we want and we're willing to do the work. It's theirs for us to take. So that's how I like to begin, as well as just remind you that I'm just a guy giving advice on the internet, and that I hope that you can take the advice that is appropriate to you and toss whatever I say that's inappropriate, because that's what the whole idea of advice is, right? That why is my advice any different than anything else? Only because I'm hopefully bringing a different perspective to the table that you're not used to hearing online. That's kind of why I do this, is to maybe throw some ideas out at you that you haven't heard in other places. Because I think I view the world a little differently than most people, but I think it's a world that's helped me understand the own world I live in, and I hope to give over some of those things to other people. And if it resonates, then awesome. I'm really glad to be part of that process for you. And if it doesn't, it's there to be ignored. So, okay, so that's what we got. So I'm going to start with some of the questions from yesterday. Oh, if you do have questions, please give me as much detail as possible. That always just kind of helps me actually answer your question, as opposed to just going off on some random thought of what the real issue is. And I will try to abstract these as much as possible, because I'd like it to be relevant to everybody. Most questions, I think you'll find, are really relevant to the world, right? We're all so similar, right? I was talking earlier about this experience I had once when I went into a tarot card reader, and I'd never done that before. And kind of my general advice to all of you in life is, if you have an opportunity to try something new, with few exceptions, you should try it. And so I was like, you know what? It's not something I believe in, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to have this experience of having my tarot read. And she gave me this reading, and it was amazing. I mean, she called it; it was spot on. And then I left, and I thought a little bit, and I was like, you know what? No matter who walked in, she could have said that too, and it would have been true. And I think that's so true about all of us. And just remembering how similar we all are in terms of our actions, and that's why things like advertising work well, because we're all kind of attuned to the world in the same way. So, all right. So let's go to some questions from yesterday. Hung 1039 asked, Dad, I'm 29 now, and for some reason I feel as if I'm lacking something. I've been told to experience more, but the more I experience, the more I feel as if I know nothing. So there's some imposter syndrome there, if you're picking this up here, man. So the reality is that the more we know, the more we realize we don't know. In fact, how did I know how successful I was going to be on a test? Was that if I walked out of a test, not sure if I did well, this was kind of how it went, right? So if I'd go and study in college and I'd walk out from that test thinking, I'm not sure if I did well, because the teacher could have been A or it could have been B, and I put A, but what that meant was I knew the material so well that I could see all the varieties of answers, and whereas if I walked in, I was like, oh yeah, I got this. And then it would turn out that I got the C, right? So that was the natural aspect, is the more we know, the more we now realize that we don't know. So that's different from, the two things you asked about. One's about lacking something, and the other is the more I experience, the more I feel like I know nothing. Just understanding that there is some natural imposter syndrome that can come into certain environments where just because we don't realize that everyone else doesn't know also, right? And specifically in a work environment, that kind of comes in because every job is different. So what you find is that a job isn't just about your knowledge, but it's about functional information. And sometimes that's just something you have to learn over time, and you can't start with. So that'd be the first thing is understand that just because you feel you know nothing, it doesn't actually mean you know nothing. Maybe you feel you know nothing. Those are two different things. So maybe take a step back and recognize that, in fact, you do know something. You don't know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So you're coming to the table with whatever it is that you do know, and then you can apply that. But yeah, it's probably as far as I can take that question. So I'll keep going. So we had two questions. So we had minty chocolate chip 69 for menu. The NU, I think it's probably supposed to be. This was also yesterday. How about choosing a partner? When to start dating or dating again? I'll talk about that a little bit. I think those are two different things about what to look for in a partner. In fact, I just did a really interesting exercise that a friend of mine challenged me with, which is to identify 36 things that I'm looking for in my next relationship. What are the 36 things that I want a woman to have in my next relationship? And each thing is actually kind of a couple sentences long. You can cheat, just have them like each one word. But I decided I'm going to give it some thought. I'm going to try to come up with 36 like separate big things that I think are really important to me. I'm on 31 right now. I've got to see if I can come up with 5 more. The first 20 were easy. The next 10 were a little hard. And then the last, 5 to 6 are a little bit more difficult. So I'm kind of taking my time with it. So, but I would say that the first step is really identifying for you what's important. And I'll give you just a good example of something like this. It's something as simple as what she looks like. I think sometimes there's a tendency to say, I'm looking for someone who looks like X because this is what pretty is. When in fact, you might not even be fully attracted to that, right? You're attracted to the idea of what society has told you should be attracted to, as opposed to what your heart actually is attracted to. And I think it's an important thing to recognize. So being able to step back, and ultimately it's about getting in our own mind, getting into our own space where we can understand what are those things that speak to us as individuals, and then how does that apply itself in a relationship, right? So how do we take those things and then find them in the other person? So I think the first thing is you just got to get straight. What are you looking for? What's important to you? And part of that also is maybe not asking just what's important to you now, but what's important to you if you're looking for a longer term relationship. What's important for you in 10 years? What's important for you in 20 years? Right? Which is a hard thing, right? How you kind of, you're going to change over that time and she's going to change over that time. But what are the broad things that really feel important to you? And then, sorry, and then taking a step back and understanding that some of those things that you think are important to you, you're actually projecting, and you shouldn't be projecting onto someone else, but rather you should be trying to integrate yourself. So I think before we enter a long-term relationship, I think the opportunity, and sometimes it takes a long-term relationship to find those things. It takes time, it takes decades to work on some of these things ourselves. But I think some of the goal is that if the more we can be aware of what we're trying to outsource onto other people. So for example, if you're familiar with the shadow, we've talked about that a couple times, where there's these projections that we make that we don't want to admit we have inside ourselves, so we try to look for in other people. So the more work we can do to integrate ourselves and become just whole people, then I think what you'll find is that you'll find partners that are stronger matches and that the relationship can naturally last longer. So when to start dating again, or when to start dating, I don't think there's a time per se. I think you just have to know. You have to know for yourself. I left a relationship about 3 weeks ago now, and so now I'm starting to think about dating, which frankly feels like quite the chore. But because you kind of leave this relationship, right? You leave a best friend, and now you have to start over and build up a new best friend. And there's a lot of sorting and a lot of time, wasting, a lot of boring people you have to go through, and that kind of thing. So, but I think your heart will know when it's time to start. I would say that make sure you felt the pain, really taking the time to really feel the pain and the loss from the last relationship, to take the time to ask yourself what didn't work about the last relationship so you don't do it again in the next relationship. I do think a lot of people have tendencies. They're afraid to be alone. They're afraid to face society and let society see them as being alone, so they just jump into a relationship. I think these are things that are important to be aware of. Okay. So I'm going to come back to, it looks like we got some questions kind of that are popping up on today's thing. So I'm going to try to speak to some of that and then kind of go from there. So I'm going to pull this up here. See if I can actually see it at the same time. It's kind of hidden behind my screen here. Let me try something else. I'll make it a little smaller. So I can kind of speak to what you guys are talking about. See how Reddit resizes things. Okay, that works. All right, so let's go to today's questions. Oh, and also at the top, I'm going to take just a moment. I put my phone number at the top, and I'll prioritize anybody that wants to call and have an adventure and talk about their question. That number is 470-575-0111. Give me a call. Let's talk it through. And it could be a question. It could just be a general conversation. I think that's kind of interesting for people to hear, more than just a person talking. There are other people talking. There's not a lot of synchronous communication. No, asynchronous is one way, right? Anyway, there's not a lot of give and take on Reddit, so I thought that's kind of a fun thing. And then I also put my YouTube channel up there. I need to get to 100, so I would ask if you have a check just to subscribe there. Once it gets to 100, I'm going to stop mentioning that. But I need to get 100 so I can name the channel and people can find it. All right. All right. Let's see what we got here. How would you handle a child with an opiate addiction? Let me go back to the. Have you ever smoked cannabis, sir? So I try not to make this about me, if that makes sense, as much as what I've learned in the process. So if you want to rephrase that, I'd be happy to talk to some of that aspect. But I'm not really sure. I try not to make this really just about me, if that makes sense. How would I handle a child with an opiate addiction? Wow, that'd be really sad. I know some people whose kids have addiction, right? Not necessarily opiate, but other addictions. And that's a hard place. I think you have to let your kid fail. That seems to be the mistake that most parents I've seen make, is that they try to support their kids a little bit too much because they're afraid. They're afraid their kids are going to do something that's going to really endanger themselves. And we do this throughout lives of parents, right? So it's like, this is the challenge of being a parent, of really allowing your kid to fail, because until they fail, they don't learn. And so, look, would I send my kids? Do I pay for them to go to an inpatient thing? Absolutely. But to some extent, I do believe that what I've seen is that you have to allow the kid to go through their process, no matter how horrendously scary that is, right? No matter how horrendously scary that you don't know if the phone call that you pick up in the middle of the night is from a police station or from a hospital with someone saying, "Hey, your son is OD'd, or your daughter's OD'd, or they were, any of these horrendous kind of things that can come from some of these serious addictions." Um, I think the problem is that, how do I say this? And because the truth is, I don't know a lot about this. It's just stuff I've kind of seen and along the way. So I don't know how I would actually approach it. I do know that I would give my kids whatever opportunity to get sober that I could give them, and I'd pay whatever it would take to give them that opportunity. I wouldn't hesitate with that. An inpatient kind of thing. But what happens when you send them to inpatient and they rebound, and that constant thing, because really they haven't really got to the bottom. They haven't really got to that place where they want to recover. And that's the problem, that until they work out, until they're brave enough to maybe face certain fears, until they really work out what they want, there's nothing you can really do. And I think that's just an important general perspective for us to realize about people, is that we have to let people be people, to make this just more abstract to people we meet in life. And look, I mean, it's really sad. Addiction is really sad. Addiction is really sad, and I hope that none of us have that in our life. Okay. At what age do you think it would be appropriately to agree to physically fight your son? So I assume you're joking, but at the same time, yeah, I just assume you're joking. Yeah, all right, I'll skip that one. But yeah, yeah. How do I get laid? Serious. Um, I think you find, assuming you're a male and you're into women, I think you go find somebody who wants to have sex with you, and that's kind of the process. Is there a question here? It's that simple, right? You find somebody that has an interest in getting laid, and then you have sex with them. So you're asking how to find that person? Is that the question you're asking? Seriously, if it is a serious question, but I think I gave actually my serious answer. My serious answer is that you go and you find someone that you want to have sex with and wants to have sex with you. It's actually that simple. And we can talk more about it if you want to put some more detail in there. I'm happy. I do think that was somewhat of a serious question, and I'm not joking, because my answer is actually serious. But I'd love to give a little more information if you have some more question that you'd like to throw out there. Is that a picture of a mushroom on your wall? Try and see what you guys can see. Yeah, that was no mushroom picture. Okay. Okay, here we go. So we got a financial question. Here's one. Should I start leasing once my own truck runs its course? It's a bit old, but still going strong. Or should I find another vehicle to outright buy and own? It's going to be cheap, around 2K. I see. So I'm not actually. I don't understand the question of. So you have a truck now, but it's a bit old. I would say buy and own. If you can pick up something for 2K, buy and own. That's got to be the goal. And let's just talk about money and savings for a few minutes. So the biggest stressor in life is lack of money. Money gives you options. more than anything. It offers security. It offers, other people other things. But the biggest thing I think money offers is options. And so, especially when you're starting out, if you can put yourself in the strongest financial position you possibly can for the unknown that will inevitably come, it'll give you a step up in life. So if you can get when this, once this your opportunity to leave this vehicle and get away from a payment just moves to an opportunity to buy a $2,000 truck, and you kind of know that's not going to have a lot of issues because it's, it's a truck that's known to be stable and not have a lot of issues, then absolutely that's the right play. And ignore what the rest of the world is doing. Make yourself comfortable financially in your own life, to have a security blanket, to have a little extra money in case your job comes to an end. Get yourself with a cushion so you always have options. And that option can be so you can quit a job that really doesn't work for you. It could be so you can quit and go around the world for a year. There's just so many different things that money can offer from an option perspective that I really encourage you to be as cheap as you can when you're young, and there's always an opportunity to spend when you get older. And the best way I can put this is when I was starting out, I had to choose between two apartments. And I was in Baltimore, just graduated school, newly married, and there was one apartment complex that had central HVAC and another that you had to buy a window unit and put the window unit in the window. And I still remember thinking to myself, like, I'm from Atlanta, I'd never seen a window unit really. And just this idea of like, how did this thing not fall out the window? And these were like these huge, heavy ass window units. I was just like, how does this even work? But anyway, point being, I just made the choice. I was like, you know what? I'm young. If I skip to the nicer place right now, it wasn't even that big of a difference. Back then, maybe let's say in today's dollars, a $200 difference between the two places. And one was like really nice, and one was just kind of okay. It's a place to live. So there was the money aspect and the money decision aspect to it, but there was also this other aspect that I couldn't ignore of that if I started now with the perfect, it would be so much harder in life to go backwards from that. And I'm kind of happy that I did that because it really enabled me to kind of start cheap and then build my way up, if that makes sense. So that would be my advice to you. If that's an option, is start cheap in life and build your way up. Always be saving, if you can, 20% of your income, and don't stress out about things. Have you be in charge of your life as opposed to having life be in charge of you. That's my hope for each of you. Okay. I need an advice, please. I have a hard relationship. My girlfriend constantly says she doesn't love me, but every time I come to her house, we spend a lovely time together, do things, even little ones. But at night, she starts saying that she wants to. Here. Hope I don't know what. Okay, look. And to me, this is kind of a typical mixed signals kind of situation. I'm going to ask you a question, which is why are you sticking around with a woman that says she doesn't love you? Because I think this can be telling for yourself. And once you understand that, then you can make a decision around it. In general, from my perspective, either someone's in or they're out. And they get to choose that, and I get to choose that. And so my recommendation for you is that you take a step back and say, why are you willing to be in a relationship with a person that says they don't love you? Does that question make sense? Like, what about you allows that to happen? So, and to me, there's some lack of self-confidence there. It's like, well, this is what I got, so this is the best I can do. But the reality is, and I hope each of you realize this, is that you're only limited by your own mind, right? So if you're thinking this is the best you can do, then it absolutely is the best you can do. And then you can settle because that's the best you can do. But if you realize that the world is abundant and there are plenty of people out there, and there are a lot of people that would love to love you, right? Just keep that in mind. There's so many people in the world that would love to love you. And it makes it a little bit easier to say, you know what? I think it's time to take a little break from this and go find, a better girlfriend that's constantly saying that she loves me. So I don't think, games to me are just kind of somewhat pointless. And when you're in a relationship with the person that's playing games, that's when it's time to, vacate that relationship and go find something that's much more fulfilling. So I'm seeing that we got some people coming in here, and I want to share my one thought that I like to try to share anytime I kind of, this blows up a little bit on Reddit, and that's about a discussion about your false truth. All right, so it's a false truth, it's a false belief, and I want to explain what I mean by a false truth or false belief. And what that is that it's one thing that you believe about yourself to be true, which is in fact false. And this belief holds you back. So what I mean by that is, so I'll give you an example. You do something wrong. You spill a cup of milk. There's an initial thought that comes to you. Oh, I'm stupid. Oh, I'm clumsy. That's a false belief. That initial thought that comes in is a false belief. And what I want you to realize, the first thing I want you to ask yourself is, what is that for you? Take a moment, just ask yourself, what is my false belief? And I think you're going to find that, people have shared what their false belief is. In fact, throw your false belief in the comments for a second and take, and share it with the world. Now, and I'm also going to tell you that whatever you think your false belief is it's actually 4 or 5, 6 levels lower than that. But I at least want to give you the concept, because once you have awareness of this false belief, you can create change. Because until we have awareness, there is nothing we can change because we're not aware of the issue. So back to false beliefs, false truths, and it's one thing. And what it actually does, it probably is one of your primary motivators in life. And you'll see it's pervasive. And so I want to give you some awareness around this false belief and this false truth. So for some people, and it's quiet, it's I'm crap. Someone said the other day. For me, it used to be, and it might still be, I'm not enough. For some people, it's I'm not smart. And then, so let's say yours is I'm not smart. Let's say that's your false belief. And we'll talk more about maybe how to get a little bit deeper into really uncovering our false beliefs in a minute. But what happens then is that it's in the idea of this, the big false belief is that it's so pervasive that it impacts everything we do. So if somebody comes and challenges us and our false belief is I'm not smart, we go off on a tizzy. Whereas if we knew that, well, hey, this isn't really true because I actually am smart, right? Once you kind of realize, oh, wait a second, right? For me, it was, oh, I am enough. I always have been enough. But until I have that awareness, I can't create the change. So I'm out there proving to the world that I'm enough. Constantly. That's what I was doing, right? I was going out and saying, damn it, I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to do everything. And it was killing me because there was this false belief, this false little voice in my head saying, hey, Josh, you're not enough. So I just like to share that idea whenever people show up because I think it's an idea that I was never given. And then I'll challenge you a little further to understand that whatever you think that false belief is, becomes I am crap, let's say, the person said the other day. I want you to understand that that's just the first level. And so why don't we take a minute or two and see if we can't get down to the next level down to that, because it's until you get to that last false belief and uproot it that it's carrying around permanently through your life. So, let's say your false belief is I'm crap. So I want you to ask yourself something to the question, and you can do this on a sheet of paper. You can write down, I feel like I'm crap because. And you're going to find out that there's a reason you feel like you're crap. In fact, if someone could call me up, my number's at the top. If somebody has a minute, let's just run through an exercise maybe together. My number's at the top of the chat. I'll give you the number out again, 470-575-0111. Give me a call. Let's see if we can't work through what your false belief is together. And I can promise you, if you figure it out, it'll change your life forever and will no longer impact you negatively. But I know it's a brave thing to do. Frankly, it's a fearful thing to do. Until you touch fear, until you're afraid of going forward in your own thinking, you're not your false belief, because your false belief is something that's hidden from you because of that fear. You're afraid to cross that barrier, and then once you cross the barrier, it's easy. But you hit up against that fear, and it's like, I can't go any further. But then you just take that step, and it's like, oh, wow, that feels really good. All right, so I just want to introduce you guys to that general topic, and now I'll just go on to some other stuff here. Let's see what else we have here. I have an attraction to my friend's father, and they support it. Is this okay? So I would assume you mean that I don't know if your friend is supporting it, or either way, the answer is going to be no. And I'll explain why. Even though I believe in general that whatever you feel is okay, I think that's an important thing to understand about ourselves, is that whatever we feel, we have to accept it. Okay? Now, but just because we accept it doesn't mean that it's appropriate. So I think this is a good example where there's something inappropriate in the relationship. So you don't need to feel bad about it, but I want you to have the awareness of the inappropriateness, so you yourself can grow from it. So what specifically is inappropriate? So first of all, attraction is different than relationship, right? We're attracted to a lot of people. That's one of the cool things about looking at people. Why do people like people watching, besides the fact that it's just fun to watch people, for those people that enjoy it, like watching animals? But there's also, you just see attractive people walking by. So being attracted also, I think, is important to differentiate between being attracted and taking action on the attraction, right? That's in general. We need to allow ourselves to feel however we feel, but we have to choose that some things are things that we don't want to take action on. They'd be unhealthy for us, or something to that effect, where we make that choice to differentiate between kind of how we're feeling and what we're doing, because they're two different things, right? No, I don't think you can ever blame somebody for how they feel, but I think you can blame somebody for how they act. So if you're saying that the father's supporting it, I just want you to know that the father's being somewhat manipulative of you, right? There is something to the fact that older people can take advantage of younger people. There's a natural thing in that. There's a part of growing up that we just can't see the world clearly. I say I'm just now starting to see the world clearly at 45, and I also believe that when I'm 55, I'll be saying the same thing. But there is something natural about, there's a naivete that comes when we're younger, and we don't even know that we're in that mindset. So if the friend's father is supporting it, frankly, that's, I don't know how old you are, but that's, could be illegal. And there's a reason it's illegal, because we want to take care of, society wants to take care of younger children that don't fully understand how inappropriate certain things are. And it's not just a societal decision, it's just something about the nature of certain ages and being together. But either way, and again, if you're saying, well, no, I'm 22, that's a whole different discussion about being in a relationship with somebody who's a lot older than you, and asking the question. In fact, I'll just go into that for a minute, right? So let's pretend that you ask her, or 18 or 19 or 20, 21, 22, and there's a father who's 45, 48, and really what it's about is asking the question of, what is an appropriate age gap in a relationship, right? So, there's people have a formula for what that is, but the reality is that there's a reason why we're in a relationship with people approximately the same age as us, and that's because when we're in a relationship, it's about two people coming together, and age is something that creates life experience, right? The more years you've lived, the more experience you've had. The more experiences you've had, the more awareness you have of how things work, and literally your brain is approaching the world differently. So it's just, so typically if you're younger and you're falling in love with someone who's much older, you kind of have to ask yourself, well, is this about some aspect of childhood where my father wasn't around, and so this is the direction I'm going, or something else entirely? So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. what are your credentials? Disclaimers in this broadcast. I have no credentials, none at all. I'm just a dude that's lived through life, walked by the path of a different drummer. So yeah, no, absolutely no credentials. I'm just sharing what I've learned with the idea that I love Reddit. What I really love about Reddit is that you can bump into people that are so different than you are. And I think gives the opportunity, that randomness gives an opportunity to hear perspectives that you might not otherwise bump into because you're so in your world, right? And I used to notice this like when search first came out, right? You do a search and all of a sudden you'd be at the same kind of 3 or 5 sites, right? Find the same kind of information. And you couldn't get out of that because you're using the same search engines. Well, the opportunity on something like this is that you can actually get outside of that a little bit and maybe learn something new that you wouldn't otherwise have bumped into in life. So that's what I'm here to do. But really, if it's information that you find effective, then you should use it. And if it's not, you should absolutely ignore it. That's, but that's really, I'm just here to give information. And typically I'm here on 5 o'clock Eastern most days. So, all right. Green Mountain, thank you very much. Random Black Sheep. Hello, Mr. Dad. What should I do considering I'm in college, but really not liking what I'm studying, but also having no idea what else to do? I get that. So here's right. So the obvious problem with school is that how do you find something without knowing what you enjoy doing? In fact, it's actually totally screwed up. With my kids, at least, I've really encouraged them to take advantage of maybe, summer, even in college, like try doing different work programs, right? Just so they can see, like, what do I enjoy doing? Do I enjoy working with my hands, with my mind? What, and that's something that maybe you can take an opportunity to, and internships are out for the summer, but maybe you can work with the Career Center to try to get some type of internship or people that start networking to even just work for a week in a job so you can say, yeah, this is fun or this is not fun, right? Because how sucky is it that our society has set things up in such a way that we don't get to try things before we literally live our life for 45 years doing it, right? It's kind of screwed up, but that's the reality that we live in. So we just got to work with it. So, okay. But the first thing to keep in mind is that what you're studying and what you're doing are going to be two different things entirely. So, and the best way I can put it is everybody on the first day of work, we were talking about imposter syndrome earlier, everyone on the first day of work goes in and they really feel like they have no idea what they're doing because they don't. So they have some knowledge, but functional knowledge, since they've never done it before, they don't know what to do really. So the first thing just to realize is that if the job kind of sounds fun to you, but you don't like the studying, it might still be okay, right? Now, but it might not be. So I would say, take an opportunity maybe to two things come to mind. First of all, there are assessment tests that you can probably do in your Career Center where they will allow you, like, how would I approach it really? Like, let's go the real question here. How would I approach things? I'd go to my Career Center and say, look, I need you to help me determine what my career is going to be. How do I determine a career? That's a Google search. How do I find a career? And part of that's going to be some aspect of how long do you want to be in school for, and what are your natural interests? Are you more mathematically and science minded? Are you more artsy, right? And just finding a career that will come up. But I do think a career test will actually give you, if nothing else, they'll have a list of 1,000 careers, and you can just read through them and say, oh yeah, this sounds good. This sounds good. No, this isn't it. And see what patterns start emerging, and then try to make your degree that it could fit into the broadest of options, especially if you're, just starting college, so you can kind of shape things as you grow and form an opinion throughout your college years. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay. Let me rephrase this as back to the guy who asked earlier. How to convince people to sleep with me. So I think the general perspective is that you don't want to convince someone to sleep with you. there shouldn't be a lot of convincing involved, right? The whole idea. I got a call come in. Let me grab this and then we'll come back. Okay. Hey, this is Josh.
Hey, you got the Reddit stream going on?
I got the Reddit stream going on. I got anonymous calling in. How's it going?
Nice. So I think there's a little lag or something because it's not showing you talking on it. That's okay. So I thought I followed you a bunch, like what you're saying. So I'd give you a call.
Cool.
Chat it up.
Awesome. Let's do it. Where are you?
I'm in Vermont.
Beautiful. I guess I've wanted to get to Vermont, New Hampshire. I've been to Maine. I guess it's close. I've been to
Maine. I got a job lined up there starting next month.
In Maine? Where in Maine?
Up in Bangor.
Awesome. Yeah, that's where I was. I was up at Bar Harbor.
Oh, nice. I haven't been that far yet, but I was in Central Maine for a while.
Cool. Yeah. Well, Bangor. Yeah, and I spent a day or two. I think Bangor had some of the best ice cream I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
I gotta get up there.
Yeah.
I'll have to take someone else's word for it. I don't. I got lactose intolerance. So
got it. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks. But yeah, literally the best ice cream I've ever had in my life was in Maine. I mean, and consistently, it's consistently the best ice cream I've ever had.
So I got a thought. You were saying
something
about our true self or our false thoughts, whatever, about ourselves.
Yeah, false beliefs. Yeah, a big false.
So I got a brother, older sister, and they're doing a bunch, pretty successful in their own right. I just turned 30, and to frame it. But whenever they hit an age, like when my sister graduated high school, I was like, oh my God, she's turning an adult. Then when I graduated high school, I didn't feel what my view of her was. I was like, oh, I'm still this child. Same thing, graduated college. I don't know if other people are feeling it, but it's like every age I hit, I'm not feeling the age that I view other people.
Mm-hmm.
I was up to them.
Yeah, no, and I totally get that. I didn't feel like an adult until I was probably 38 or so.
Okay.
If I'm honest, and so what you're saying, definitely, I can reflect on that personally. And I think what changes is kind of so first of all, just to keep in mind, I think is that, right, you're viewing yourself through your eyes. And so you see your childish behaviors or the aspects of you that are somewhat childish, whereas when you're viewing your sister, you don't see those things, right? She probably does. Like if you would have asked your sister, hey, do you feel like an adult? She would have said, no, of course not, right? In fact, she probably would still say that. Because what happens is that we view other people, through the lens we create of them, but we actually view ourselves through our own lens.
Yeah.
So I think that's some of what kind of happens that, that now, but that's different from the specific question of like, what makes you start feeling like an adult? And I think for me, what made me start feeling like an adult is when I started to really feel grounded. So, and it wasn't about like to me, like adult is somewhat like, I don't know, there's some aspect of like, that immediately comes to mind of like, serious and responsible, but that's not, it's really what, I was serious and responsible. I was kind of born like with a briefcase, so I was serious and responsible from the beginning, but I didn't really feel like an adult until I felt more grounded, if that makes sense. And
yeah, that makes sense.
And secure in who I was from that I just kind of knew where I fit in the world. And I think that for me gave me that perspective of feeling like an adult. Does that sound reflective?
That's that view, yeah. Because I've definitely felt a little more, the older I get, the more I feel for my life. But still, I still feel like I could easily be in college or something.
Right. Well, and I think the question that, if assuming you think it's important to feel like an adult, which,
necessarily.
Not necessarily?
Yeah, it's just I view other people and I'm like, oh, wow, they're an adult. But like you're saying, I'm not seeing what they, either A, their mistakes, B, what's going on in their head. I'd be like, oh, they're really confident, and yet they probably spend 5 minutes talking themselves up to go and do that.
Absolutely. And in fact, for a lot of people, it's their lack of confidence that makes them come off as confident, right? Because it's like, I better not let anybody see how not confident I am, right? So that's kind of the nature of some of that stuff. So
people could easily view me as super confident, and I'm over here like 10 different scenarios running through my head.
That's right. Exactly. In fact, they probably do. And you, in all likelihood, right, if you could actually compare the two people, you could be on the 90th percentile of total confidence,
Right.
of people. But you just don't know it because you can't see into their head. So
Right. I could that totally makes sense.
or you might be the top 10, right? I mean, you could literally be the top 10 of the 7 billion people in the world. You just you just don't know. Someone said to me the other day, we're talking about being single, and he said that the 2 happiest people he knows are the Dalai Lama, who's single, and someone else who's married. And he was just showing how, like, you can be single and happy, or you can be you can be alone and happy, or you can be married and happy, and it's just about making what's important to you. So
really be happy with yourself. I see a lot of people saying, well, I'm not happy, I'm not in a relationship. And it's like, well, you're probably not going to be happy in the relationship if you're not happy with yourself.
Absolutely. And that's always the goal. And but what I was saying to him, I said, how do you know that you're not happier than both of them? Right? Because he's like, these are the 2 happiest people. And I was like, you don't know that. You could literally be happier than Dalai Lama. Like,
Easily. You could be the happiest person in the world and really never know it.
That's right. So I just think it's a cool thing to think about. So, but thanks for hopping.
I like it. I appreciate your insight. I'm going to keep following your streams, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Absolutely. My pleasure, and safe travels to Maine as you get out there.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Tell Stephen King I said hi.
All right. All right. Bye.
Cool. All right. So, all right, so, okay, back to the girl advice. So let me rephrase, how do I convince people to sleep with me? So this is where we were, and we'll kind of talk about this for a minute, and then, also, just a couple things. I did put my YouTube link at the top, and the only reason I mentioned that is I need to get to 100 users so I can name my YouTube channel and then just name it, and people can find it. So if you have a moment to click on that, subscribe. I assume once I name it, you can unsubscribe, but that would be awesome. If this was helpful to you today, please just say thank you. So I know that, and that encourages me to come back and do it again every day. I think typically at 5 o'clock Eastern. So, all right. So here's the thing: is that you shouldn't need. First of all, there will become a point in your life, and I don't know when that'll be, but I can promise you that you don't have to convince people to sleep with you. They will sleep with you because they want to have sex. So and for the fact you're asking the question, I'm guessing you're kind of on the younger side. You really don't want to be convincing someone to sleep with you, right? So if you're having to convince someone, then that's not the right partner. You want to find someone, focus on finding a person that you want to be in a relationship with, and then the sex will actually be meaningful as opposed to just having sex, right? And don't get me wrong, I appreciate having sex for having sex, but I think if you actually want people to sleep with you, focus on relationship, and you'll find people will sleep with you. There won't be a lot of convincing that needs to be done because you'll be in a relationship, and that's the natural outcome of that relationship. So that would be my advice to you: is find someone you want to be in a relationship with, create a relationship, ask them out, get to know them a little bit, and the sex will come naturally. So, and I think you'll find it to be a more meaningful experience as well. I'd like to end the way I started, which is a reminder about what I mean by when I say you are beautiful. And it takes a step back to understand what I call the whole person. And what I want you to do is I want you to view yourself as a whole person. What that means is I think we all can see our 1 or 2 faults that we're always pointing out to ourselves in our head. But that's not us. We aren't those 1 or 2 faulty aspects of self. We're in fact 300, 400, 500 amazing parts, and 1 or 2 things that could use a little bit of work. And I like to suggest that we all look at the world through truthful eyes. And the truth is that if you have 500 pieces and 2 of them aren't so great, well, as a whole person, you're pretty amazing. So I want you to recognize yourself as a whole person. And in doing so, you can really start to see your own beauty. Because in a way, what your weaknesses are somewhat make you unique. And that's what makes you beautiful. And then once you create that weakness, or you recognize recognition and that belief, you can then go and do anything in the world that you want because you have that internal power pushing you forward. So go do it, whatever that is for you. Please, feel free to join me again. As I mentioned, 5 o'clock tomorrow, should be back. And certainly appreciate everybody joining and look forward to doing this again tomorrow. Be well. And the day after that. I really am here pretty much every day. And thank you for the platinum. But typically, in order to try to keep myself coming back, I try to limit it to the 45. And thank you for the other words. And if I didn't get to your questions, I'll try to start out with them tomorrow. And you can just check out my username and find that if that's of interest. So in the meantime, I hope everyone has a wonderful week and really has a week of where they feel some personal freedom and happiness. So cheers. Be well.